that was imposed on us by the military. Look at the crisis going on in Rivers State, where the governor says, this is my preferred candidate to rule the judiciary as the chief judge. And the NJC, National Judicial Council, says, oh, we are sorry. We suspend the person that you have appointed unless there's a recommendation from us from Abuja. In other words, we run the federation as a unitary system. The governor has no say in who heads the judiciary of his own state, and yet he pays their salaries. And this is just one of the imbalances in that constitution, whereby the president is like a civilian dictator. So I think that the major problem we have currently is not just about national conference. It's about the amendment of the 1999 constitution. Look at this system that we're operating since 1999. Not a single local government has been added to any state. The attempt by Lagos State to do it was frustrated at the national level. Not a single state can be created. The National Assembly has been going on this rigmarole of amendments since 1999. Every year, every tenure, they will have a committee to do that. So we can't fool ourselves to think that by gathering 492 people together, we can amend that constitution. Unless we get through that stage where we can have a constitution that is people-oriented, we're not getting anywhere.
Okay.
And that's the point. And the second issue is this, and it's very vital. Look at the legal backing, the validity of this particular conference. And that's the point we are making to the president. We had thought that by the time you will do a conference, there will be something valid that can make it possible for you to say, this is a decision that Nigerians have taken. There is no law, there is no gazette, there is no legislation. People just gather to talk and talk. What is the essence of their talking? And they say they will send it as a referendum. Can you put something on nothing and expect it to stand? What are we discussing? What are we voting upon by way of referendum? If at the end of the day, all we do is just to send it to the president, he will send it to the National Assembly, and they will sit on it. So I think that by now, members of the National Conference should sit down and form a committee and draft a bill on their own that can be sent as an executive bill to the National Assembly. Let there be a legal teeth for the kind of conference and deliberations that we're expecting from this outcome. Otherwise, it just be a jamboree. Okay. And that's why I'm saying the president is fooling us.
Bala, the president did say that the indivisibility of Nigeria was sacrosanct and was not to be discussed at this conference. But place that beside the utterances of the inflammable utterances, I might add, of the Lamido of Adamawa,
yes.
Saying that there was a state in Cameroon called Adamawa, and if they were pushed to the wall, they would secede more or less and be part of Cameroon.
You know, by virtue of my upbringing, you know, I'm a subject to anybody who is, in quote, a traditional ruler, whether it's Oba Rilwan of Lagos, Bayero of Kano, Oba of Benin, Alafin of Oyo, Lamido of Adama. But you see, one thing I would just want to say is I tend to be very careful when people of that level make utterances, even if I'm not too comfortable with that. The only way I will address that, or the only point I will put there is, if, let's assume Cameroon is suitable and will be welcoming to move to and assimilate, as the Lamido said, it simply means some people, some Cameroonian made sacrifice, decided to be open, decided to sit down, talk, and make that place peaceful for him to move to. Then the question is this: why can't we do the same for Nigeria? You know, and that's why I said people should mind the way they talk, because there is this saying that the power of life and death lies with the tongue. You can use your tongue to convert a bitter enemy into a good friend. And you can also use your tongue to convert a good friend into a bitter enemy. From such utterances, you will agree with me that the injuries of bitter words and the pains and the division it will cause to that conference will even be more venomous than the venom of a viper. So people need to watch their utterances. The essence of just being there, and that was why to me I was comfortable with the mix. Let Elamido of Adamawa be there, so that you know the abundance of his heart, and let it come out from his mouth. If you have a retired or a convicted criminal, why not? let us understand why he was a criminal before. In fact, even if you have a retired prostitute, why not? Why was she prostituting before? What does she have now to pass over to the next generation? And that's why people like me are feeling, in fact, the way I almost wanted to carry out what we call a normal distribution curve in statistics. But it didn't really go the way I wanted it. It's skewed. But when you look at those aged that we are talking, or tired legs, in between them, you know, you have the Yinka Odumakins, you have the Tunde Bakaris, you know, you have the Dr. Tokumbo Awolowo, that we were together at the Awolowo Symposium. You had great minds, I'm telling you, in between. Then coming to the real younger generation that I was made to understand is probably less than 10 or less than 50. It's a fairly good distribution. These aged already know they are on their way out.
Okay. Very quickly then, this will be the final question because we really must wind up. We don't have enough time to deal with all of the issues. So let me ask you very quickly then. There are some members of the National Conference who are saying they should be asking for memorandum from the public again. In just a few sentences, what's your thought about that?
Well, what we have seen presently is that the so-called delegates at this conference are not representative of the interests they are supposed to represent. There's no constituency interaction. Many of them were just appointed either by government or by their organizations without sinking into them the view and positions of the constituency they are supposed to represent. And that's why the president of the Nigerian Bar Association said, look, I can't be at this conference because the NBA met at its next meeting and said, we refuse to send only one delegate on behalf of all lawyers in Nigeria. And the man refused to go there. That's a person representing a constituency. You will know that if you were to be present there, he will have a position paper of his organization that will be presented. So as we are now, as we see this particular conference now, to be asking the public to submit memorandum to that conference is an admission that you don't even have an aggregate consensus or idea of the people that you are representing, which is totally wrong. The conference that we anticipate is the one in which anybody who will step into that conference is already loaded with the idea of what he wants to be canvassed by his constituency, and then marry it with the one coming from other people, and then we get a consensus as being representative of what Nigerians want. Okay, so not retired police officers and retired army generals.
I think I was a little bit disappointed when I heard that some of them were asking for memorandum and the rest. I think to me, even their knowledge of successes and failures were enough for Nigeria. And I'm not joking, honestly. If we still feel these people are still not right with the other ones, then maybe it's time to privatize Nigeria. Or call Her Majesty, the Queen Emeritus. She's still there.
So as we wrap up in just one sentence, Zakar, in just one sentence, do you think 3 months is going to be enough? If 2 weeks is already spent on just conversation about how they vote and how not and stuffs of that nature?
I think once you are able to put in the necessary, to cross the T's and dot the I's, it will almost be like a very fast thing. But I don't want to believe Nigeria is too complex for us not to be able to find solutions. And if this fails, I wouldn't be surprised if Nigeria will be looked almost up to as a laughing stock on the international pedestal. Okay. The whole world is watching.
The conference will be on to such a time that the president will be comfortable to declare his ambition for a second term. I'm very sure of that.
Okay, well, on that note, we have to wrap it up. Thank you very much, Ebun Olu Adegborowa, a legal practitioner who's not particularly happy about the conference, I would say.
Well, we're happy about national conference, but not this presidential conference.
Okay, and then, of course, Zakabala, who's a social commentator, a bit more positive about it.
Because I only have Nigeria. I don't have an Adama or Cameroon to go to Niger or Benin Republic.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for being on the show this morning. Sunrise will continue in just one moment, so do stay with us.
The Monetary Policy Committee at its meeting held this week retained the benchmark interest rate at 12% but voted to increase cash